It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmick Voice. Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmick Voice. This is Season 7, Episode 10. I am here with my co-host, Chris Natalini.
What's up, everybody?
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome back, everyone, to yet another show. Chris, how are you, sir?
What's happening, Mick? I am doing fantastic. What's going on with you?
I'm fantastic. Things are just rolling along, staying busy.
Nice.
Doing my thing.
Doing your thing.
That's well, I don't know what my thing is some days, but it's there. Sometimes it's all hanging out, and you gotta strap things up at this age. You know what I mean? Get a bigger shirt, which I've been doing a lot lately, getting bigger shirts. The new thing is now my singer is saying, because his father said it to him, we're men of a certain age.
Yeah,
and that's his excuse now for everything. What do you mean a man of a certain age? I mean, like, can we use that to not pay our bills? You know
that's
what I mean?
a polite way of saying we're old.
That's right.
That's
well,
what
yeah,
that is.
We're old and we're giving up now. So, but I'm not ready for that yet. I'm still trying, but I got to get bigger shirts in the process. So, it's always something to look forward to, right? Always something to look forward to.
I guess, man. As of the time of recording this, it's freezing here.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
And I'm sure because we're not that far behind. But at time of recording this, it is cold, man, and it is a bitter. But it's winter, like it should be. But I'm too old, bro. I'm just too old for this cold weather.
Yeah,
man.
It's terrible. And it's worse when you're carrying equipment at 2 a.m, and
dude.
And it's freezing. You got the chill through you, and you're just the heater in the vehicle doesn't get fast enough. It's just bad, man.
And you're in the boondocks. I'm at least near the city, so it's not as cold here as it is where you are. But it's still cold, man. It's still cold.
Yeah. Listen, anything below 95 is cold to me now. It's gotta stay up there, I mean, we were lucky because we had such a light fall here. I mean, like we were getting some incredible weather, and I was really hoping it would hang on till summer, but wish in one hand and in the other.
Here's what happened, bro. Like it was hot, warm, and then bitter cold.
That's
like,
right.
It didn't even it just didn't even gradual.
No,
it went from 90 to 32.
I know.
In a day.
In a day. I mean, it was it's crazy, man. Where's those weather balloons we're seeing? Shoot them down. What are they doing? Somebody help us, man.
Crazy, man. It's insane. It's legit insane anymore, man. Yeah. But I can't do this. I can't do this cold. Another thing I have trouble doing, anytime after a gig and I wake up the next day and things hurt, I go, maybe I should pick a different kind of music.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
I can't, my head bagging, my neck hurts, my back hurts, my knees hurt, my ankles hurt.
Yeah, I hear you. We do less shows than we have in the past, but we're always taking shows if we can. And like we've talked about on the show and privately, those invitations are getting less and less because there's less and less venues to play. More and more bands are, vying for a spot on a bill. And there's a lot of shows anymore you just don't want to take. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
There's shows that are happening. You're like, I don't know,
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of doing even less and less. Now, again, we've talked about this on the show. We've talked about it privately as well. Like, we're not touring bands. Like, that's all we do. I would have loved to do that years ago. I'm not that interested in doing that anymore. That's just me, right? I mean, at this stage of the game, I don't feel that I need to have to do that. What I do now is more for the love than a living.
Yeah.
Do you
I
know
mean,
what
even the bigger bands don't do the work that they used to do.
No, well, because again, they've run into the same things. It's not the same amount of venues to play, the quality of places, the attendance at shows, and like we've talked about even last season, and a lot of major artists have talked about it in the last 18 months or so. I mean, the cost of touring is crazy, especially when you're just not sure what the return's going to be. And album sales, generally, for most bands at all levels, are lower than they ever were. And, you know, and I mean, more and more artists are coming out talking negatively about streaming, specifically Spotify. They all have something that they're taking from us, but Spotify seems to be at the top of the rung. Yeah. Yet everybody keeps pushing their numbers there and this and that and the other thing when you know they are inflated. You know, at the end of the year, they have that wrap-up thing, right?
The wrap-up, I know.
Wrap-up. I've seen a couple bands that we follow, and, you know, we keep in touch with one another and stuff like that. And they're newer bands, you know, because you meet them while you're playing out on the road in a different state at a show, and you connect that way. I mean, just on a side note, like, it doesn't take much just to go like that band.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a professional courtesy. But it's also, it's helping the scene. You know, what's one more like? Well, one more like adds to the mix.
Yeah.
In the long run, it just helps. But I'm looking at, like, some of these people are putting some wrap-ups of it, and I'm saying, where are these numbers coming from? Like, I'm not even sure you've been out that long to even constitute those type of numbers. So you see what I'm saying? It's becoming so normal to buy these things because you're buying packages. So if you upload something to, say, Spotify, and you're releasing some stuff through Spotify, they have those sound campaigns, and you'll get inundated with emails from various companies saying, you know, we could put together a package for you, you'll get this many streams and all, and it's all based on price. So streams, clicks, listens, followers, likes, whatever all that stuff is, it's all built into this package, and these packages have become affordable, and that's what people are doing. They figure, well, this is the only way to do it. It's the same as you want to pay to be in a magazine. You're seeing a lot of bands show up in Decibel Magazine. They're not showing up because Decibel Magazine's reaching out to them. Decibel Magazine is using, and I hate to single them out, but I get stuff all the time through the various things that I'm involved in, that they're using third parties to bring in artists to either advertise and or have reviews and or interviews, and you're paying for it.
Yeah, or the label's paying for it, right?
Yeah,
like,
somebody's paying for it. Well, if the label's paying for it, you're paying for it too, because a lot of these labels now are splitting things with the artists. It could be a 70-30 split. It could be a 50-50 split. It's all this different stuff. And some of these labels will tell you, oh, we can do song promotion for you. It's going to cost $1,500, and we'll split that down the middle. Well, how do you really know? They're getting your $750. I'm just throwing some numbers out, just for sake of easy math without a calculator here. How do you know that they're actually putting out another $750? You never see that paperwork, and even if you do, it's all doctored. How do you know it's for real unless you're doing it yourself?
Know it's for real?
Yeah.
It's Ross the Boss.
Take it down.
Johnny D from Britney Fox.
This is Stephen Pearcy from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmick Voice.
I wanted to ask you, because I've been thinking about it. With all that stuff, you see it at the end of the year and what artists are saying about this and that. I mean, Anthrax is complaining about Spotify and, you know, one artist after another. They all say the same thing. It's trickling down that we keep feeding into the machine that's giving nothing in return. But we keep feeding the machine. Because you know why?
That's true.
Brand new artists every day keep feeding into it. And then after a while, veteran artists or people that have been around for a bit go, well, my choice is I either do nothing with it and get lost, misplaced, or I continue to feed into it too because I have no choice. And that's what a lot of them are saying. We keep saying, well, we have no choice. Well, some labels even actually said, yeah, we don't have the choice, but the choice that we could do is not use Spotify.
Right.
These are the same labels that are using Spotify. Unless you make that leap too, I mean, because plenty of artists do make the leap, you know, because now the thing is if you've been seeing some of the material going out, you know, because again, writers and articles and journalists, they all follow a trend at some point. When there's enough noise, somebody will start writing about it. So now they're all saying, they're going back to this, even though in 2024, right around August, they said, nobody's going to your website. I even mentioned it, I think, on the show.
Yeah, you did.
Now
You
they're
did.
saying that they want you to maintain your website because that's where you want all the activity. They're saying, get off of social media. And we had a show about it. Does social media still work?
Yeah.
But they're saying use social media to bring people back to your website, which was originally the goal
Right.
10, 15
right.
years ago, right? And then
Yep,
it became, you don't need a website anymore. We'll just go right to Facebook because people stopped going to websites. So now they want you to maintain a website, get people there, have your music accessible there, your merch there, everything.
Yeah.
Every 2 months we're changing. Hey, now we're doing this. Now we're doing that. Another guy said be on every single platform you possibly can. You know how impossible that is? When 2 years ago they were saying pick 2 platforms that work best for you and your audience.
Yep.
So who do you follow?
It's amazing to me that there's so many choices, then there's, they don't want you to do all the choices, and someone else says, no, do all the choices, and it's crazy, man. And I know you and I talk about it all the time together privately and even on the show. Like, it's just so lately, this scene, the music industry as a whole, is just incredibly screwed up. And I just feel like it's always been a mess. I mean, you and I have talked about it, even back Beatles and before, all those artists that weren't getting paid. I just feel like now, honestly, this is the culture that we live in today. Who do you trust? People could put up numbers going, oh, iTunes gives more money than Spotify, or listen to this first, don't listen to this. And do I really know that? Because obviously I'm not making enough money off streaming to go, well, I got paid from iTunes, but I didn't get paid from Spotify. Would I love to have those numbers? Of course I would love to have those numbers. Do I think it's possible? Anything's possible. But am I ever going to say it? Probably not. You have all these outlets for your music because it's been making the rounds now, especially because the Spotify wrap-up came out the time of recording this. A lot of people that I've seen on my social media that are in bands go, don't stream our stuff on Spotify and go to iTunes and some other website. It was like, and it's still cents to the dollar. Spotify is what, 0.00003, and like iTunes maybe like 0.0012, or you know what I mean? Like it wasn't that much of a difference that we're all going to be having checks roll in. I mean, we aren't on our level, the level of this podcast that we promote. We talk about bigger artists, but we don't need to. Whether they're making the money or not, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, that's on them. They just pull their stuff from streaming. But I mean, at this level, like, what are we going to do? And it's just that same thing back when we were younger, all the tape trading. I mean, just for guys like us, at least for me and my guys, like, we just want people to hear the music. Would I love to get a check from Spotify? I think that'd be awesome. Even just one, even if it was like $1, like that would be amazing. But I just want people to hear the music, especially at the age that I am. I just want people to hear it. And it's frustrating. It's super frustrating, but it's just like it was back in the day of tape trading. And then, when Lars Ulrich got involved in all that file sharing, and we're still doing it. Now it's just legal. Well, it's not legal because people are getting ripped off, but you can stream stuff now and do it legally. You pay for a premium or subscription, and you're still doing the same thing as we were doing as we were younger, was tape trading. And I mean, listen, tape trading was a huge deal back in the day, especially for the genre of music that I'm in, the thrash metal, even death metal scene. Like, it was a big thing, man. Tape trading was a big thing. And now I look back on it and go, God, what was I thinking? But I don't want to take money from people. I never wanted to rip Metallica off, but that's just, that was just something that we did back then. And we didn't think about it. And they sure as hell didn't think about it because it wasn't a thing. At that time, they weren't thinking about money. They were just thinking about getting big. And now that they're big, now they go, to file sharing and all that stuff is just so yesterday, really.
The numbers are so insignificant for us that no one pays attention because they are insignificant. Yeah. That's the problem. And then we've been beat into a corner to go, well, we just want people to hear the music. And they know that. And
you're right.
They still benefit, and so do labels. It's like a streaming factory, right? They just sign all these artists. Everybody uploads because they get that exclusive digital release rights thing for a certain period of time. Listen, if it makes sense for you, you do it. But you make sure that isn't longer than a couple years. Especially if you're new and you're just trying to get out there, a couple years, that's not a big deal. I mean, really. I mean, I guess some people will say, hey, it's one bad thing after another. But if you're still establishing yourself, it's one thing or the other. And there's ways around it. I mean, I've learned that myself. But at the same time, you have to make that decision. And I've always maintained a website. I think it's important. What I do with that website has varied over the years. Right now, it's primarily just an informational website, because the numbers don't reflect otherwise. Even though they may be saying that this is what you need to do, that doesn't mean that that's what people are doing. They're not going to the website as often. And I can tell you that because I see newsletter signups dropping each year. They just drop.
Yeah.
Because people don't want extra stuff in their mailbox, number one. And two, younger groups don't use email. It's not their mainstay of communication.
Especially at a time of like your TikToks. You know what I mean? You get more views just by doing a TikTok, and you're hoping that it goes viral. I see so many people trying to do dumb or say dumb things because sometimes you just get that viral moment. That's why I think that's why a lot of younger bands don't do that kind of stuff, the emails and the list, because we have social media. So why send out a mass email when I could just do a 15-second video or whatever? Here's my thing too, Mick. Like we were just talking about, I'm thinking to myself, you would mention Anthrax, and I go, okay, like that, and I see this all the time, like artists, complaining about Spotify. Okay, I totally get that. So take your stuff off it. Okay, maybe you don't have the masters or the rights. Okay, well, that's fair. Then when you do, then take it off. If you're going to complain about it, but then still promote it and keep your stuff on there, how am I supposed to take you seriously? I understand the fact that the reason why Anthrax is complaining, or any other artist, I totally get why they're complaining about it, and they have a right to complain about it. Of course they do. But then don't promote it. Don't keep your stuff on there. But you have to, right? You have to, because people have these premium subscriptions to your iTunes, to whatever else you have. And I've said it a million times on the show, I'm a huge supporter of Bandcamp. Like, I just do. When a band has a Bandcamp or your website, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'll buy from both. I will try to buy from the website or Bandcamp. They're the first two places I go. Now, of course, some bands, their website's linked to the label, and I'm okay with that too. I don't mind ordering from the record label, because there's going to be a record label out there putting stuff out. I'm going to try to support the record label. But if you're an indie band, like Bandcamp, to me, Bandcamp is the way to go. And I know a recent release of my newest project, our Bandcamp, I love promoting it because it's all us. We know what's coming in. We know what's going out. We have total control over it. And I like that. And then, of course, they do the Bandcamp Fridays. The first Friday of the month, 100% goes to the bands. I just think that's huge. But, when bigger bands come out and they say, oh, Spotify this, well, take your stuff off then, man. Or stop promoting that your stuff's streaming and send people to your, because listen, when people were looking up Anthrax, they're going to go to Spotify unless they're going to, or their Facebook, and, it's going to lead them to the website. But don't promote it. Don't promote streaming if you're going to complain about it. But then on the other hand, what do we do? What do we do as artists when we have these platforms to get our music heard? And not everybody buys CDs anymore. So what other option do you have?
Like you brought up a point, a lot of these guys don't have the rights to their music, which is another reason why they're complaining.
Yeah.
So the piece that they do get is very little, and then streaming makes it even less. Because some of those albums that were negotiated long before streaming was even a consideration, a thought, right?
Yeah.
I think that the difference, and maybe there isn't a difference, maybe I'm just trying to reach for something, but the difference between tape trading back then and then the digital media that's available now is the tape trading wasn't necessarily permanent. A lot of those tapes would fail because they were cheaper tapes.
Oh,
the
I see.
Sound quality was a lot
that's
less.
Fair. Well, yeah, that's
and everybody did them.
True.
Now, I'm not saying that made it right, but it was a norm. But with the digital stuff, like there's a permanency to it, to some level. Like it never goes away, and generation after generation after generation get a hold of it, and then what people can do with it from there, I think, is a far greater concept or model than what people were doing with their mixtapes back in the day. I mean, here's the truth. Like, you think about it. I mean, I actually still have some, but I don't have as many as I did back then because most of them just did not survive.
But yeah,
a lot of them were on some really bad tapes. Cassette tapes were super expensive for a kid who didn't have any money. So you were, you know, those, you know, Woolworths or Five and Dime, you know, you get those 3-packs. You know, remember them? For like $2.99.
Yeah, I do.
And the sound quality was the worst.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you could get a couple weeks out of the tape, because the way we used to play them over and over and over again, and they were in your pockets, you were carried them, you lost them, they got all destroyed. You know how many tapes I had to snip and put tape on, and you get that, you're hearing the song, and they go, and then the song starts again, like everything. And then after a while, you get so disgusted, you throw it out.
You throw it out, yep.
I think there is a difference, but I think there also was, listen, there was guys, nobody wanted to pay. I get that. But I think there was an innocence to it as well back then, because no one said that it was wrong. I'm not saying that that doesn't mean that it wasn't wrong. It was something we did. We were sharing the music. And you're talking about, like, for a lot of people. Now, I know there was, like, you know, conventions of bootlegs and all that kind of stuff. And bootlegs have been around for ever and a day. I remember a story that I read, and I also seen a video of it years ago on YouTube of Neil Young going into a record store during his, like, heyday, and he seen an album of his that he didn't release. He didn't even recognize the album. And he goes up to the guy and he says, you know, hey, what's with this album? And the guy's talking about it, and he goes, well, that's me, and I never gave you permission to sell this album. And they actually have it on video or something like that. They filmed it or something like that. So there was bootlegs going on back then. Record stores were doing it, you know, they were you know, doing these pressings of stuff. Yes, there was some wrong to it, but I think for a lot of, like, you know, 12-year-old, 13-year-old kids, I think there was an innocence to it. Now, there is no innocence to it now, because everybody knows. Yeah. It's been too popular of a topic for us to know that it isn't right.
Yeah. And now, you know, really, bootlegging now is YouTube.
Exactly. There's a legality to that. They've kind of smoothed that out.
Yeah.
I tell you, man, it's a crazy thing. Actually, I'm going to go back to, I started asking you a question based on this, but we wound up getting into all this other stuff, which all pertains to it. I mean, where do you think this is taking all this stuff that we talk about, especially like now, and with the scenes deteriorating in an overall aspect? And as we were talking before we went on air, I mean, we were talking to some bookers and venues and even fans that go out to the shows, and they're just saying it's just terrible out there. They keep booking bands that aren't very good. It's the same bands over and over again. Mix-match bills. It just doesn't seem to draw the crowd. And venues aren't doing anything to better it. You know, on the next level, you have the streaming issues, you have the pay or lack thereof, you have all this restriction, the growth of AI. Where do you think the industry's going? Where is this placing us for a future of a local, regional, and then national scene? I mean, what do you think?
I don't know, man. You know, because when COVID happened, we've even said this on the show, when we were back up and running from COVID, I assumed that it was going to be good for the industry because it was going to put all of us on a level playing field, because we all got shut down. Guys from me and you to people like Taylor Swift. Like, we all got level. Like, we weren't doing anything. And I thought maybe once COVID, you know, that whole thing kind of passed, that once things got back up and running, the scene would be stronger. And I feel like it's just gotten worse. The industry, the scenes, I feel like people are just making worse decisions now than they ever have. We're all trying to have great shows. We're all trying to get people through the door. All the clubs, all the venues we're all just trying to have a successful show. I don't know what is. I have opinions. I mean, I have ideas, and you and I have just recently, as of this show, we're talking about different things that people can do differently. I don't know what the answer is. I don't even know if there is an answer. I think that we need a big reset. And I'm not saying another COVID. I'm not saying that. But the industry needs a big fail to try to rebuild and do it the right way. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that entails. Because there's always been crooks in the music industry. There's always been people ripping artists off. It's just something that's always been, and I believe that always will be. But can we get better at it? I believe we can. What it takes, I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. It sucks because there was a time that we weren't having this conversation. Every show was successful. All the bands were great. Egos weren't as bad. Venues were better to the bands. Bands were better to bands. It was just a different scene, man. And now in 2025, I don't necessarily know what happened. I don't. One thing's for sure is there's way too many egos out there. Way too many egos. That's a definite. Has there always been? Yeah, there's always been egos, but I feel like it's just gotten really, really bad. And I'm not sure why. I'm all about you thinking your band is awesome, and that's great, and having some kind of attitude about your band. You know, on a friendly level, you can have some confidence about your band. I'm all about that. When it just helps kill the scene because of your ego, then that's something that needs to be addressed or looked at. But I always say those bands will eventually implode, and they'll all go away. And I haven't been wrong yet. You know, sometimes you just got to sift through the ashes to get to it. But we'll see, man. I don't know, Mick. I don't have that answer, bro. I don't have that answer.
Yeah, I agree. I think that a major shakeup will be needed.
That's what it takes. That's what it's going to take.
But, you know, I mean, again, you know what happens? What happens is things will just die out and go a completely different way. Like, if you remember here in this area, by the late 80s, early 90s, things started to take a turn. The clubs started seeing it. And a lot of venues in Jersey became strip clubs. Venues that were playing, they just went over to strip clubs.
Yep.
And or closed. And that was it. And I think that's where we're kind of in this little weird lull. I don't know if strip clubs are going to be the thing, but at the same time, like we talked about this before, at some point, even prior to COVID, for places to play were bars with a stage in the back or an area on the floor, right? And they would have a couple nights a week that bands would play. And some of them would only have bands play on Sundays, which is always a hit or miss time, you know, in modern time or, you know, or some weird stuff like that. What that shakeup would be, I have no idea. How that would take place or what that would really look like or mean, especially to the individual bands. Because at the end of the day, whatever that shakeup will be, the tail end of it, all the bands will feel.
Yeah.
Like you said, look what happened with COVID. We thought we were going to ride the wave and everybody coming back all together. But what happened was, is like the tail end of that whip, a lot of bands were just shaken out and they were gone. A lot of bands displaced, didn't come back, you know, so on and so forth. People retired or said, this is it for me. And look how many venues we lost. Even now, as 2024 went out the door, we lost venues 3-4 years after COVID. Just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So you're seeing how things have changed. You'll get so many perspectives online, seeing what people have to say, and everybody's got some kind of thing. And I guess for individual artists, for indie in the trench artists, and maybe that's where everything's going to go. It's going to rely on those bands just to do their thing and create that new scene from that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know, for you and I, we're on the back end of our career.
Yeah.
So there's an expiration date. We've talked about that before. So it may not be with us.
Right.
Or, you know, we may not even get to experience even any of it. We may be stuck in the lull the rest of our career. And that happens. Listen, there's been plenty of bands that's where their career wound up lying. It's no fault of their own. It's just that this was the time. So I don't know, man. I mean, my hope is that things do improve and the quality of what is out there improves. But like you have said before, I think people just don't care the same way that they did, and that's trickled down to the norm.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely.
And there you have
Definitely. Yeah.
You are listening to the Cosmick Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
All right, with that said, let's get into the topic with the time that we have left of the show. So the topic is metal dead, or has there been a resurgence? And the bigger question, how does that affect the local scene in the long run? So if metal's dead, or there's been a resurgence in it in the last couple of years, yes or no? And how does that affect the local scene as we move forward? Chris, what do you think, buddy?
Well, I don't necessarily think that metal is dead. I don't think it ever dies, honestly. Now, I know at the time of recording this, there's a lot of scuttlebutt on the internet about rock being dead. You and I have had this conversation about rock being dead, and we didn't agree, but we agreed that there's no more big rock bands. Just pretty recently, as this episode is recording, Dave Ellefson, ex-Megadeth bassist, came out and had said that he agrees with Mr. Gene Simmons about rock being dead. Now, to be fair, I did not read his statement, but you and I have discussed it on a larger level about, is rock dead? I don't believe rock is dead, but in terms of your big rock bands, we don't have them anymore. We don't have Aerosmiths and Zeppelins and Halens and Kiss, and we don't have that. We have these rock bands on rock radio that say they're rock. I don't necessarily agree. I mean, it's more alternative rock, which whatever, but in terms of like rock, like rock is dead, I don't think metal has ever died. Has it been stale? Has it gone down? Sure, absolutely. You know, there definitely has been a decrease in metal through the years. I don't believe that at this time that we're doing this, I don't believe metal is dead. I mean, honestly, we just had 2 metal artists on Jimmy Kimmel. You know, he's had Slayer on, and Conan's had a bunch of bands on before, and I think metal is doing fairly well at this time. Now, it's not the metal that I'm kind of into, but I'm an older guy, so you know, there is this new style of metal that's kind of coming out, and I think it's doing really well. Metal has always pulled in decent numbers, even from your smaller clubs to the bigger venues. And I look at it like this: if metal was dead, why do we have all these older metal bands through the 80s reuniting and doing tours once again, right? Like Stryper, and still releasing music, and the music's decent. Like, it's definitely not bad by any means. So, you know, you have all these metal bands from back in the day reuniting and coming back out and doing these tours, or, you know, Vegas residencies, whatever. You know, you still have rock radio that's playing heavier stuff than they ever have. Even on your satellite radio, there's more the hard rock, heavy metal stations. They're decent from a lot of the other stations, and your Spotify's, your iTunes, always filled with metal bands. And I think longevity in the metal scene is better than it ever has. So, I mean, is there always going to be a resurgence? Sure, because there's always going to be bands that bring back like a newer wave of, you know, a number of years ago, there was a new wave of thrash metal that was coming out, and it's still kind of going on today, but, you know, stuff like that. There's always bands coming out and giving a little more juice to a certain genre of music. But do I think that it's dead? No. I don't know if it's ever died. I don't believe it's ever died. Now, maybe I feel like that because I'm a metalhead, but I feel that even now, like if you go out and you see younger kids with metal shirts on, whether it's Slipknot or some newer band, or I don't believe it's dead. But I believe there's always a resurgence because younger people, younger musicians come out and they take a genre and they do it their way. So maybe that you could call that a resurgence. But I don't believe it's ever died. I believe that it's had its slow moments, but died, no. I feel like metal is one of those genres, no matter what metal it is, that you never outgrow, right? Like, how many metal shows have you been to where you see some guy with long gray hair and a jean jacket, and he's up front loving every minute of it? You don't get that anywhere else. You know, you don't get that at your rap shows or your, I don't know,
pop.
EMDs, yeah, pop. Like, you don't get that. Like, metal is timeless to me. Whether you're going to see Metallica for the millionth time, whether you followed them at the first record to now, or whether you're just kind of a newer listener. But I think metal is one of those genres that never go anywhere, and it's timeless. I do. I truly, truly believe that. And it's one of the reasons why I got into heavy metal was for that. People just have a connection to metal like no other form of music.
I do definitely believe that metal is a tried and true genre, for lack of a better word, or style of music. I mean, because we definitely see that it has endured, right? During the 90s, there was, as the hair metal scene, the rug was pulled, metal wound up taking several steps back, but then it emerged in a new form, which I think ignited people, especially by, it took a couple years to get it to that forefront where it became more mainstream aware, even acceptable. But by 2000, within 8 years, things had really kind of turned around.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's one of those styles that definitely endures. And you do have guys pushing the envelope. Maybe not as many as there was at one point that are pushing the envelope, because you have a lot of established acts that can kind of just rehash what they've already done because they already have an audience. Case in point, one of our favorite bands, Kiss. When they brought it back in the 90s, it was new and fresh, even though it had been done 20 years prior.
Right.
But
right.
People that were craving it and the new audience for it, so it made sense. And they parlayed it pretty much from 96 until 2023.
Yeah, yeah.
So they worked it. And for a lot of people, I mean, let's be honest, like in the last 15 years, people complained about it. It was tired, they should give it up, bring back the original guys, dig somebody up, put them back out. It was just crazy. Like, if it wasn't one thing, it was something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though you'll have people say that, well, Kiss was never heavy metal. Well, in the 70s, they were billed as the masters of heavy metal because that's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it was.
That's what it was. So
Yep.
The definition of what metal or heavy metal or whatever it is has changed over the years because just like everything else, it changed with the time. So is rock dead? Absolutely not. Is rock dead for those guys from that era? Yeah, because the definition doesn't fit. And we talked about that in a couple seasons ago. But I think our episode was, is rock dead?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you and I play a lot of the local scenes and the regional scenes. I play a little bit more mix of genre bills than you do because of our style of music. But there's still some great artists out there, independent, people that nobody knows. And it's just a shame because you may never see them.
Yeah.
It may be short-lived or, it's limited in the capacity of how they're presented. And that's unfortunate. And that's a host of things, from what we talked about at the beginning of this episode to everything we've talked about in the last 7 seasons. Do I think metal in itself, because again, remember, my definition of metal and what metal is today is 2 different things, 3 different, 4 different things. But do I think there's a resurgence? I do. And unfortunately, it's only at the higher levels. Because, like with a band like Judas Priest, they're still releasing new material that is stellar. Their concerts are still something to take in and be inspired by and aspire to. And they're taking out good bands with them.
Yeah.
They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now, and then, Ozzy gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. Some of this stuff may be too long coming, but nevertheless, it puts it in the forefront. Those bands have become more mainstream.
Yeah.
And that does help. It lessens the impact to some degree, but it also raises the awareness to new generations and crops of people who would have never considered it otherwise. Because people who would have dismissed Ozzy back in 82 now accept him as a household name. And they get a kick.
Right.
He's a comedy act. He's he could be a clown. Oh yeah, by the way, he's a singer too. And then they get caught up in the whole, hey, maybe I should go check this out because everybody else is, or as time is getting whatever. But I do think that bands like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, they're keeping things alive, and they have created a resurgence on that upper echelon. However, based on my experience, and things I've talked with venue owners and even bookers, local metal shows don't draw crowds. There's a dedicated group of musicians that will continue to do that music. You and I are in that group. Truth be told, without a national or a larger regional band attached to those bills to draw the crowd, local metal itself, like, the metal nights down at the Watering Hole, they're just not pulling the crowds that they once did.
Yeah.
Because people look at local bands as local bands. They just don't give them I'm not going to pay $10 to go see a bunch of people I don't know for songs I don't know. And what happens? I mean, these bands are forced to do covers. I just played a show, 4-band bill with I guess they're a national headliner. Every band played covers, including my band, because it's a way to recapture the crowd and get them interested in the remaining bit that you have. Now, if you're doing it out of the gate, I don't agree with that. If you throw a cover in as your second to last song, that's okay.
Yeah.
If it's one song out of 12, that's okay. If you got 7 songs that are covers out of 12 and you claim to be an original band, well, maybe not.
Yeah.
You see what I'm trying to say? Now you're just a cover band.
Yeah.
I understand the importance of it. I wouldn't have done it years ago. I still debate it, but I even said to my singer, it was on the list. I said, but we don't have to play that. I go, because it's okay to sell our own stuff. We've been doing it. There's nothing wrong with it. We got to that point. The crowd was kind of excited. He comes up to me as I'm tuning and goes, what do you want to do? And at that stage of the game, you're like, you do whatever you feel is best now, because you're the ringleader here. I'm just the guy in the back, right?
Yeah.
And so we did it. It was a positive. But listen, even though I'm doing it, and if you follow the show, totally against it for a lot of years, I think it was during this show, the seasons of this show, where I made that conversion. You've watched my growth. We've done it together. You can't beat them, cover them. But here's the thing. I am seeing some success with it in terms of how I'm structuring stuff. But it's not the main of what I'm doing. And I'm content with not doing it, but I've gotten to a point where I'm content with doing it. That's how we try to keep things moving forward and keep things fresh, especially when you're maybe odd man out. We try not to do metal nights, locals, anymore, because it is such a bummer. And then you just hear all the flack. The booker complains about it, the venues complain about it, and they put the blame back on the bands. It's like, well, you knew who you were booking. And
right.
It's not that to say that none of these bands are capable, because they are capable. We can't drag people into a show. And I've played with metal nights that the bands are unbelievable, but there's nobody there. Yeah. I've also played with metal nights where they're like, oh man, somebody pull the plug, please. So you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
That's not one way or the other. I'm just saying this is the nature of the game. You could promote all you want. You could do whatever you want. It's still up to that individual to make that choice to come to the show. Is there a resurgence in metal? Yes, I believe on the national level there is. It's kept us alive. It's kept independent artists like ourselves inspired and aspiring too. Because you and I seen Judas Priest on their last run through. It was an amazing show.
Amazing.
You left there saying, oh my God, I need to do it like this.
Yep.
That was the model that I picked after listening to Stained Class. And it's the model that I'll continue to strive for. Have yet to hit, but I'm still working on it. But
still trying.
Right. And like you had pointed out, if the guys that are inspiring you are still doing it, then there's your model, right? And if that's what's helping keep us alive, get that resurgence to really take a foothold in the local and the regional scenes, well then it's our duty to keep it going. Again, like I've talked about before, and we just talked about it, we've said it, we keep saying it, it's no secret. There's an expiration date here. For us, We may not see it. Maybe we will. Maybe we will get lucky. My mother used to say that all the time. I won't be around to see it, but your children will. Okay. All right. So maybe that's the way it goes. I don't know. But as long as I think that we're doing our part, we'll keep that in the mix. We'll keep it going. Just like picking up fans, like you've always talked about. I've adopted it because we talked about it years ago when you said it. It was like, it's one fan at a time. And if we try to keep making that effort to make those milestones in our career, whatever that is, right? That's for us to determine because success is determined by ourselves. We may be helping other people see that, okay, well, listen, if they're doing it, I can do that. Again, I'm not comparing myself to Judas Priest, but you go, if Judas Priest is doing it, maybe I should give it a shot. Maybe I should see how I can work anything. And maybe somebody's saying that about you too. You don't know. You never know. You never know. And that's not ego talking. And they may not even know who you are, but I've been inspired by bands. The band that I played with, opened up for, I was not that super familiar with them at all. And I seen them. I turned to my singer and I says, this is what we have to be doing.
Yeah.
They are so electric.
Yeah.
It was so inspiring. I was captivated by what they were doing. Listen, I don't know if I could pick out a song again of theirs, and that's not to say that it wasn't good, because it was, but I was captivated by something else that was happening on stage. The music, the connection, the arrangement, the playability of it. There was just something, to me, music is magical, and in that moment, I was taken by it, and it inspired me to look at things differently and to take things to that next level. I mean, we're always striving for the next level for sure, but when another band comes along, I got to step up the game. To me, that's fantastic, because we all kind of rest on our laurels a little bit. Hey, it's working for us. You know, like Angus said, you know, we've done 11 of the same albums.
Yeah.
And it's worked. So, you know, you kind of get into that. We all get into that. But then you see that, and it's just that one little thing that could change everything else.
Yeah.
And to me, that could be a resurgence in itself. We need more of that. And as you pointed out multiple times, a lot of bands aren't open to that. They get stuck in this tunnel of themselves, and that's all they see. That's all they want to do.
Yep.
And they miss the bigger picture. And it goes back to that big fish, little pond thing. Tunnel vision, in some regards, it keeps your nose to the grindstone, but you could get lost in the process because you're missing your mark and you're never achieving what could be your greatest effort.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%.
I think we've agreed that metal is still going strong. Little bit of a resurgence going on, especially at the higher levels. And I guess it's just a wait and see. We just gotta keep swinging in that local scene and ride the tide. What do you think, bud? You got anything else you want to add?
Metal's not dead. I mean, metal will never die.
That's it. Metal never dies. Metal never dies. If you like that episode, check out some of our other episodes at www.thecosmickvoice.com. Step into the Cosmickverse and fill that void. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmick Voice. If you have a question, a topic idea, or something you want us to address, just contact us through our Facebook page at The Cosmick Voice. You can listen to The Cosmick Voice at Spotify, Breaker, Apple, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, and at thecosmicview.com. Check us out on Facebook at The Cosmick Voice.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Mick and I would like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And we hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future episodes of The Cosmick Voice. And you can get in touch with us through thecosmickvoice.com and, of course, all of the Cosmick Voice social medias. Take care and be safe.
You're listening to The Cosmick Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.